The religion began as a henotheistic offshoot of the Canaanite worship of El, along with his secondary epithet, Yahweh, which refers to El Yahweh Sabaoth, often translated as Lord of Hosts, which likely means El who creates the armies. El, who was the supreme god of the Mesopotamian Semites, later became the chief god of the Hebrew Bible. In Canaan he was known to be the father and the ruler of the divines, as well as the creator. The god of the Jews evolved gradually from the Canaanite El, who was the high god of the pantheon, to the Israelite El, who is likewise the chief god of the Hebrews. The essential qualities of the Canaanite El were retained in the god of the Hebrews, along with memories of the theogony of El and the gods. Over time, the Israelite group of Canaanites converged the sky gods El and his son Baal-Hadad, and El was conflated as Yahweh. Early on, the Israelites also worshipped Yahweh along with his wife Asherah, who was originally the consort of El in the Canaanite tradition. For a long time, scholars of the Hebrew Bible concluded that a major difference between the God of the Bible and the gods of other traditions was that so-called pagan gods had sexual lives and consorts, while Yahweh did not. But in the late 20th century, archaeologists uncovered two intriguing inscriptions from two different Middle Eastern sites. The inscriptions were blessings not only in the name of Yahweh, but also his consort Asherah. Over time, there was a push towards monolatry, the worship of one god among many, but not necessarily denying the existence of other gods, which made it so that the Israelites' focus on El Yahweh compelled them to make it appear that there was a greater divide between Yahweh and the older god, Baal. Thus, in order to build up and emphasize the distinction between Yahweh and Baal, the Hebrew text goes to great lengths to make Yahweh's conflict with Baal apparent. This marked the trend of Israel rejecting its heritage. Although the Israelites apparently broke off from Canaanite tradition at some point, the essential elements from the Canaanite sources were maintained in the Bible, such as the same dwellings and epithets of El. El resides on Mount Zaphon, and in certain texts he dwells within a tent just like the tabernacle described in Exodus. Titles of the Canaanite El were preserved in the Hebrew tradition, such as the following: Elyon, which is Most High; Rechem, which is Bull. Also, El was called the god of patriarchs, a warrior, and El was called Olam, which means eternal. These were the names for the Canaanite El, and they became the names for the Hebrew El. Interestingly, Babel, relating to Babylon, is a conjunction of Bab and El, meaning gate of the god. But it was not singly El from which Yahweh evolved, but also Baal-Hadad, the Canaanite storm god. Indeed, also the name which Jews substitute for Yahweh, lest they utter it, is Adonai, the term from Canaanite Adon, which means Lord. It's a synonym for Baal, which also means Lord. The connection between Yahweh and Baal is undeniable. We find narrative instances of the Israelites' understanding of this connection in parts of the Hebrew text, such as Exodus 32:8, the crafting of the bull by Aaron and the Hebrews as Moses was on Sinai, in which it is said, "These are your gods, O Israel." We see in the Israelite religion precisely what one should expect to see from a religion evolving from and assimilating religions surrounding it. In numerous passages, Yahweh is depicted as any ancient Near East storm deity, the most notable of which is Baal-Hadad. Like Baal, Yahweh is a warrior who descends from his mountain home, riding on a chariot of clouds. His voice is thunder, and his weapon is lightning. The earth quakes, and the skies release rain at his command. In primeval times he asserted his authority by defeating the sea, becoming the ruler of the skies. Exodus 15:3 reads, "Yahweh is a warrior, Yahweh is his name." Numbers 23:22, "El, who brings them out of Egypt, is for them the horns of a wild bull." Numbers 24:8, "El, who brings him out of Egypt, is like the horns of a wild bull for him. He shall devour the nations that are his foes and break their bones." El of the Canaanites was also called bull and warrior. Here are some examples of parallels between Baal and Yahweh as attested to by the Ugaritic literature in the Baal cycle and the Hebrew Bible. Let me tell you, Prince Baal. Let me repeat, rider on the clouds. Now your enemy, Baal, now you will kill your enemy. Now you will annihilate your foe. You will take your eternal kingship, your dominion, forever and ever. And the Hebrew Bible reads, Behold your enemies, Yahweh. Behold your enemies perish. All evildoers are scattered. Your kingship is an eternal kingship. Your dominion is forever and ever. The parallels with Baal extend also to the motif of the mountain where Yahweh revealed himself. There was thunder and lightning and a heavy cloud on the mountain, and Mount Sinai was covered with smoke, because Yahweh had descended upon it in fire, and the whole mountain trembled violently. The same imagery is used of Baal's theophany. Then Baal opened a break in the clouds. Baal sounded his holy voice. Baal thundered from his lips. The earth's high places shook. The association of Yahweh as a storm god is also echoed in Judges chapter 5, verses 4 through 5. Yahweh, when you went out from Seir, when you marched from the highland of Edom, the earth shook, and the heavens too streamed, and the clouds streamed with water. The mountains shook, before Yahweh the one of Sinai, before Yahweh the God of Israel. And Psalm 104, verse 3, Yahweh sets the beams of his chambers on the waters. He makes the clouds his chariot. He rides on the wings of the wind. There is also a shared emphasis on the seventh day. For it was on the seventh day of Daniel's incubation rite in the temple that Baal intercedes for him and El blesses him, just as it is on the seventh day that Yahweh called to Moses on the cloud-covered mountain. Indeed, the characteristic origin of Yahweh in the roots of El and Baal is preserved in Hosea 2:16, which reads, Yahweh says, You will call me my husband, and no longer my Baal. Frank M. Cross suggested in 1973 a potential connection with the Egyptian deity Ptah, who is given the title Dugiti, Lord of Gath, in which Ptah is called Lord Eternal, and that it may be this identification of El with Ptah that led to the epithet Olam, which means eternal, so early and so consistently with the Israelites. Another similarity is that both the gods Ptah and El create the world through their very will, and not through a divine battle between gods.
Several biblical scholars have suggested that Yahweh originated with a group known as the Sashu Canaanite nomads from southern Transjordan. An Egyptian inscription at Nerakak from the time of the pharaoh Amenhotep III refers to the Sashu of Yahweh, evidence that this god was worshipped among some of the Sashu tribes at this time. And the references are at the bottom, where it talks about how this was the case. Also, let it be noted that the Yahweh of the Bible was the supreme god of Canaan. Thus, the Old Testament writers took that name from paganistic Canaanites. Keep in mind that the Canaanites were polytheists, or they were pagans. In other words, Yahweh was not the original name for God. The original name for God was more like Elohi or Eloha instead. Eloha is the singular is a singular form for the Hebrew name Elohim. In fact, in Genesis chapter 33, verse 20, Jacob is said to have made an altar dedicated to the worship of El Elohi of Israel, which would mean El, the God of Israel. In fact, we can see that Elohim evolved into Yahweh from the following biblical verse of Exodus chapter 6, verse 2, which will be read right now. And God the Hebrew word being Elohim, spoke unto Moses and said unto him, I am Yahweh. Exodus chapter 6 verse 2. And you can, if you read the Hebrew above, the word for God, the Hebrew word for God, the Hebrew name of God is Elohim, as you can see in the Hebrew text above. So the general conclusions of biblical scholars is Yahweh being one of the many gods and goddesses of the pantheon of gods of the land of Canaan, the southern portion of which would later come to be called the land of Israel. Yahwehism thus evolved from Canaanite polytheism. Yahweh even had a wife called Anat or Asherah, who was worshipped alongside him. Can you get any more pagan than this? This is further proof that the Old Testament, that the name of God, the biblical or the Old Testament name of God, of Yahweh, is pagan. It is not the, Yahweh is not the name of God. It is the name of a Canaanite pagan deity that was later on adapted by biblical writers. Thus, Yahweh is not the name of God. And of course, if you want to check my bibliography, all the references are there, so you can check my bibliography. These are, Old Testament scholars. These are people who are scholars in ancient Israel, scholars in Judaism, scholars of the Old Testament, scholars of the ancient Middle East, and the ancient Near East. So you can check those references for yourself in my bibliography. So I hope this clarifies the misconception that Yahweh is the name of God. Yahweh is not the name of God. In fact, Yahweh was taken from ancient Canaanite polytheistic beliefs. Thus, Jews and Christians should seriously stop calling God Yahweh. Stay tuned for my next video.